Many people think too much about their future, but they take very little action. This is one of the biggest paradoxes of modern life. People plan, imagine, and analyze many possibilities, yet their real progress stays very small. Let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever spent hours thinking about a problem, but still did nothing in the end? Maybe you thought about learning English more seriously. Maybe you planned to start speaking practice, join conversations, or improve your confidence. You imagined how helpful it would be for your career, your studies, or your future. But after all that thinking, nothing really changed. This situation is more common than you might think. Many people spend a lot of time planning their next step. They think about starting something new. They create many ideas in their mind. They imagine different outcomes and possible problems. Their brain keeps asking questions like, what if I fail? Or, what if people judge me? Or, what if I'm not ready yet? Because of all these thoughts, they delay action. Instead of taking the first step, they keep analyzing. Slowly their mind becomes tired. They feel mentally exhausted, even though they have not actually done anything yet. And at the end of the day, they are still in the same place where they started. This is the hidden power of overthinking. It makes people feel busy, but it does not create real progress. Overthinking can make you feel stuck. It can slowly reduce your confidence. It can even make simple decisions feel very difficult. But here is an important idea you need to understand. Overthinking does not mean you are not intelligent. It does not mean you are lazy. And it does not mean you lack motivation. In many cases, overthinking happens because your brain is trying to protect you. The mind wants to avoid mistakes. It wants to avoid embarrassment. It wants to avoid uncertain situations where the outcome is not clear. So instead of moving forward, the brain prefers to keep thinking and analyzing. In this video, we will explore why the brain creates this overthinking loop. You will also learn simple ways to interrupt that mental pattern. Most importantly, you will discover how small actions can break the cycle of hesitation and help you move forward step by step. Because real change does not begin with perfect plans. It begins with simple actions repeated every day. But before we learn how to stop overthinking, we first need to understand how it appears in everyday life. Let's look at a situation that many people experience every day. Imagine a normal morning. You wake up and think about improving your life. Maybe you open your phone, see someone speaking English confidently, or remember that English could help your career or future opportunities. At that moment, you tell yourself, I should start learning English seriously. For a moment, you feel motivated. You imagine yourself speaking clearly, understanding movies, or communicating with people from different countries. It feels exciting. You want to begin. But then something else happens. Your mind starts asking questions. A quiet voice inside your head begins to speak. It says things like, what if my pronunciation is bad? Or, what if people laugh at me when I speak? Another thought appears. Maybe my grammar is still weak. Suddenly your motivation becomes weaker. Instead of taking action, you start searching for more information. You watch videos about learning English. You search for tips on how to speak better. You read articles about vocabulary and grammar. These activities make you feel like you are learning, but something important is missing. You are still not actually speaking. The real practice never begins. Inside your mind, many emotions appear. You feel hesitation. You feel a little anxious. You begin to doubt yourself. Your thoughts become something like this. Maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I should learn more grammar first. Maybe I need a better plan. Slowly, a familiar cycle begins to repeat. First, you think about improving. Then you start planning how to do it. After that, doubts appear. Because of these doubts, you delay taking action. Later, you feel guilty for not practicing. This cycle can repeat many times. Thinking leads to planning. Planning leads to doubting. Doubting leads to delaying. And delaying often leads to guilt. If this pattern continues for a long time, it begins to affect confidence. People start avoiding opportunities where they could practice English. In conversations, they stay quiet even when they know simple words. They begin to believe that speaking English is too difficult for them. Over time, the biggest damage is not the lack of knowledge. It is the loss of belief in their own ability. But the real reason we overthink is not laziness or lack of discipline. It is deeply connected to how our brain tries to protect us from risk and uncertainty. To understand overthinking, we need to understand one important truth about the human brain. The brain is designed to avoid risk. Its main job is to protect you and keep you safe. Because of this, the brain naturally tries to avoid situations that might cause embarrassment, failure, or uncertainty. When you think about speaking English in front of others, your brain does not always see it as a learning opportunity. Instead, it may see it as a possible risk. Your mind begins to imagine uncomfortable situations. It asks questions like, what if something goes wrong? Or what if people think my English is bad? It may also ask, what if I make a mistake and everyone notices? These questions are part of the brain's protection system. The mind wants to prevent situations that might make you feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. So instead of encouraging action, the brain encourages more thinking and analyzing. It tries to calculate every possible outcome before you take the first step. This is why overthinking can feel so exhausting. Your brain is working very hard, but it is not moving you forward. A simple way to understand overthinking is to imagine a car engine running while the car is not moving. The engine is using energy. The sound is loud, but the car is still in the same place. Overthinking works in a similar way. Your mind is busy, but there is no real progress. Now let's look at action in a different way. Action is like opening a door in a dark hallway. When the door is closed, you cannot see what is inside the next room. You can stand outside the door and imagine many possibilities. Maybe the room is bright. Maybe it is empty. Maybe something unexpected is inside. But you will never know the truth until you open the door and step forward. Taking action works in the same way. The moment you start doing something, your brain begins to receive real information. You see what works and what does not. The situation becomes clearer because you are experiencing it directly. This leads to one very important principle. Clarity comes from action, not from endless thinking. The moment you start moving, your mind begins to organize itself. Problems that once looked complicated suddenly become easier to understand. Another powerful insight is about confidence. Many people believe they need confidence before they act. But in reality, confidence usually appears after action. When you practice speaking, even in simple sentences, your brain slowly becomes familiar with the experience. That familiarity reduces fear and builds confidence step by step. So instead of waiting to feel confident, the better strategy is to start acting first. To see how this idea works in real life, let me tell you a simple story. To understand how action can change everything, let me tell you a simple story. Emma was a university student who wanted to improve her English. She knew that English was important for her future career. Many of the companies she admired used English in meetings, emails, and international communication. Emma believed that if she could speak English confidently, she would have more opportunities after graduation. Because of this goal, Emma spent a lot of time studying. She read grammar books carefully. She memorized long lists of vocabulary. She watched many videos about English learning strategies. On paper, Emma looked like a very serious student. But when it was time to speak, something very different happened. In English class, when the teacher asked a question, Emma often stayed quiet. Her heart started beating faster. Her mind suddenly felt empty. Even though she knew many words, she could not organize them into sentences quickly. The moment she tried to speak, her brain became tense. Inside her mind, many thoughts appeared at the same time. She often told herself, "My English is not good enough." Sometimes she thought, "If I say something wrong, people will notice." Another common thought was, "Maybe I should wait until my grammar is better." These thoughts created a pattern of overthinking. Emma kept preparing and studying, but she rarely practiced speaking. Every time she had the chance to talk, she hesitated. The more she avoided speaking, the stronger her fear became. One day, after class, Emma stayed behind to ask her teacher a question. She explained that she studied a lot, but still felt afraid to speak. Her teacher listened carefully and gave her very simple advice. The teacher said, "Stop waiting to feel ready. Start speaking now." At first, Emma was surprised by how simple the advice sounded. She expected a complex study method or a special grammar technique. But her teacher explained something important. Fluency is built through practice, not preparation alone. So Emma decided to change one small habit. Every morning, she spent a few minutes speaking English to herself. She described simple things around her. For example, she would say, "Today I need to finish my assignment," or "The weather is sunny today." These sentences were simple, but they helped her practice speaking without pressure. She also started recording short voice messages on her phone. After recording, she listened to her own voice. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but over time she became more familiar with the sound of her English. Later, Emma joined small conversations with classmates. She did not try to speak perfectly. Instead, she focused on expressing simple ideas clearly. After several weeks, something interesting happened. Speaking began to feel easier. Her sentences became more natural. She did not need to translate every word in her head anymore. The fear that once felt very strong slowly started to decrease. Emma did not suddenly become fluent. Her grammar was still improving, and she still made mistakes sometimes. But her confidence was growing step by step. The most important change was not her vocabulary or grammar knowledge. The most important change was her behavior. She stopped waiting for the perfect moment and started practicing regularly. Emma's progress did not come from perfect grammar. It came from consistent speaking. And that small daily habit created something powerful: momentum. From that moment on, every time Emma spoke English, her brain became more comfortable with the language. The moment she started taking action, overthinking began to lose its power. Emma's story teaches us several important lessons about overthinking and taking action. These lessons are simple, but they can completely change the way you approach learning English and many other areas of life. Lesson 1. Action reduces fear. Fear often becomes stronger when we avoid action. When people feel nervous about speaking English, their first reaction is usually to stay quiet. They think that avoiding the situation will protect them from embarrassment. But something interesting happens when we avoid action. The brain begins to believe that the situation is truly dangerous. Because of this, the fear slowly grows bigger. The next time the same situation appears, the fear feels even stronger. For example, imagine a learner who avoids speaking English in class. The first time, they stay silent because they feel nervous. The second time, they also stay silent because the fear is still there. After many weeks, speaking English begins to feel even more frightening. But when you take action, something different happens. The brain starts to learn that the situation is not as dangerous as it imagined. Even if you make small mistakes, nothing terrible happens. People still understand you, and conversations continue. Each time you speak, your brain becomes more familiar with the experience. Familiar situations feel safer to the brain. Slowly, the fear begins to decrease. This leads to a powerful principle: action weakens fear. The more you practice speaking, the smaller the fear becomes. Lesson 2. Imperfect action is better than perfect plans. Another common problem for many learners is waiting for the perfect moment. They believe they should start speaking only when their grammar is correct and their vocabulary is strong. They want to feel fully prepared before taking action. However, perfect conditions rarely exist. If you wait for everything to be perfect, you may wait for a very long time. Imagine someone who wants to start speaking English, but they keep telling themselves, "I will speak when my grammar improves." Months pass, and they continue studying grammar, but they still do not speak. Their knowledge grows, but their speaking skill stays the same. Now imagine another learner who begins speaking with simple sentences. Their grammar may not be perfect, but they communicate their ideas. Each conversation helps them improve a little more. Which learner will become fluent faster? The answer is usually the one who practices speaking, even with imperfect sentences. Fluency grows through practice, not perfection. This is why progress begins with imperfect steps. A simple sentence spoken today is more valuable than a perfect sentence that is never spoken. Lesson 3. Thinking should lead to action. Thinking itself is not a problem. In fact, thinking can be very helpful when it leads to clear decisions. Planning can help you organize your learning and understand your goals. The problem appears when thinking becomes endless analysis. Instead of helping you move forward, it keeps you stuck in the same place. A better strategy is simple. Think briefly, then act quickly. For example, you might spend a few minutes deciding how to practice English today. You could choose a short speaking exercise or listen to a short conversation. After making the decision, begin immediately instead of continuing to analyze. Ideas are powerful, but they create change only when they turn into behavior. That is why one final principle is important to remember. Ideas change nothing until behavior changes. Now that we understand why overthinking happens, the next step is learning how to break the pattern. The good news is that you do not need complicated methods. Small practical actions can quickly interrupt the thinking loop and help you move forward. Step 1. Use the 5-minute action rule. One simple technique is called the 5-minute action rule. The idea is very simple. When you notice that you are overthinking, instead of analyzing the problem longer, you immediately start a small action for 5 minutes. For example, if you keep thinking about improving your English, but feel nervous about speaking, set a timer for 5 minutes and begin speaking. You can describe your day, talk about what you see around you, or answer simple questions out loud. 5 minutes may seem very short, but it has an important effect. It breaks the thinking loop. Instead of staying inside your head, you shift your energy into real action. Often, once you start, you may continue for longer than 5 minutes. But even if you stop after 5 minutes, you have already made progress. The goal of this step is not perfection. The goal is movement. Step 2. Limit decision time. Another helpful strategy is to limit how long you allow yourself to think before making a decision. Many people overthink because they believe they must analyze every possibility before acting. Instead, try giving yourself a small time limit. For example, you might allow 10 minutes to think about how you will practice English today. During those 10 minutes, you choose one activity such as speaking practice, listening to a short conversation, or reading a short article. When the time is finished, make your decision and begin. This method prevents endless thinking and helps train your brain to move from planning to action more quickly. Step 3. Focus on small actions. When tasks feel too large, the brain often becomes overwhelmed. This is another reason why people overthink. The solution is to make the action smaller and easier. Instead of trying to study English for 2 hours, focus on a small task. You can write one short paragraph about your day. You can speak one sentence in English. You can practice one short dialogue. These actions may feel small, but they are powerful because they create momentum. When you complete a small task, your brain experiences progress. That progress builds confidence and encourages you to continue. Step 4. Track your action habit. Tracking your progress can make a big difference in motivation. When you see evidence of your effort, it becomes easier to stay consistent. You can use a simple habit tracker to mark each day you practice English. Some learners prefer keeping a progress journal where they write what they practiced each day. Others use a daily checklist to record small tasks such as speaking practice, listening exercises, or vocabulary review. Over time, these records show how much effort you have invested. Seeing your progress reminds you that improvement is happening step by step. Always remember this simple truth. Small actions repeated every day break the habit of overthinking. Before we finish, let's remember the most important idea from this video. Overthinking is not solved by more thinking. Many people believe that if they analyze a problem long enough, they will eventually find the perfect answer. But in reality, too much thinking often creates more confusion. Real progress usually begins with action. When it comes to learning English, improvement does not come from thinking about speaking. It comes from actually speaking. It comes from practicing small conversations. It comes from repeating simple sentences every day until they become natural. Fluency grows step by step through daily practice. Now take a moment to reflect on your own situation. Ask yourself 2 simple questions. What is one thing you have been overthinking lately? Maybe it is speaking English in class. Maybe it is joining a conversation. Or maybe it is starting a new learning routine. The second question is even more important. What small action can you take today? It does not need to be something big. You could practice speaking for 5 minutes. You could record 1 short voice message. You could learn and say 1 new sentence. Small actions may look simple, but they create real movement. Remember that every confident English speaker was once a beginner. They also felt unsure. They also made mistakes. But they started small, practiced regularly, and continued moving forward even when progress felt slow. If this video made you think about your learning habits, try writing a comment and complete this sentence. One action I will take today is. Your answer may inspire someone else who is also learning. If you found this lesson helpful, you can also support the channel by liking the video and subscribing to Inspire English Stories, so we can continue learning together. And remember this final thought. Your future does not change because you think more. It changes when you decide to act.